Hi, Uncle Thor here. Today we're going to talk about another side of the Tyr Rune. We're going to talk about Tyr as, in strategy, what's called the focal point or the heavy point of emphasis, and also the idea of commitment. The two go hand in hand. In all strategy, generals, officers, right down to the squad leader, wants to have that one point of emphasis, that one point where he's going to focus most of his energy to accomplish his goal, whether he's acting offensively or defensively. Offensively, it's going to be the place where he's going to push through. Defensively, it's going to be the place where he expects the enemy to come towards him, and he can most advantageously stop and repel them. The idea of that focal point shouldn't be alien to you. Tyr, the rune, and the weapon associated with Tyr, the god, are the spear and the sword. And these are both finesse weapons. These are both weapons which focus maximum energy into minimal space. This is a bayonet. Usually it's often attached to a rifle. It can be used as a knife. Notice the point, the idea of this weapon. It's not to sit and hit with the whole weapon. The perfect strike for this is a thrust. That little focal point into a small spot to skewer your enemy. That's how a spear works also. A spear takes the energy of the entire body, legs, arms, and everything, when you thrust, to commit everything into that thrust. And schwerepunkt is like that. That's the German word for this heavy point strategy, and I like the word, it sounds cool. Schwerepunkt. It kind of sticks with you, and it is a key element. The Germans, in fact, said an officer without a schwerpunkt is like a man without character. And where they prize character in Northern Europe, that's a strong statement. So we're going to use that. We'll have a little fun with this word. But to pick a schwerpunkt, and we see it in our own history. In the war in the Pacific, the Japanese decided that if they put enough troops on enough islands, it'd slow down any advance, because you would have to take one island and the next and the next, and it'd wear you out. But we came up with a different thing, and this is an idea of focal point. All of these little islands where they had garrisons were all supplied by one main island. Now these little islands could barely sustain the life that was already there. Adding all these men, well, you got to supply them, because there's not enough food and water on the island itself to sustain, say, a company or a battalion of troops. That's how small some of these islands were. But the big island, that's where the ships could come in. That's where they could send supply ships out to the little islands. So what did we do? Island hopping. We went after the big island. We went after that, took it. If we didn't take it totally, we would destroy everything there and isolate it so it was useless, so that this island could no longer resupply the smaller islands. Very often when we took that main island, we took it and used it as a base for us to move forward to hit the next bunch of islands. On a couple occasions, such as at Truck Island, we merely devastated the place and then just isolated and left them there. They couldn't leave. They couldn't attack us. They were stuck there. So it was just as well as if we had annihilated everyone. The same when we took a main island, all these smaller islands, everyone was stranded there. Whether we shot them all or just stranded them, they were out of the war. That's schwerpunkt, the idea of a focal point. We committed ourselves to that focal point, and everything else fell into line. Or for the Japanese, everything else fell apart. There was a Soviet general named Zhukov who understood the concept of a focal point very well. During the Battle of Stalingrad, during the siege, he was in the east building up an army of Siberian troops. And when he decided to attack to relieve the siege around Stalingrad, he already had a focal point. It's just like in jiu-jitsu, where you take your strongest force and you apply it to the enemy's weakest point, such as the full power of your arms to the solar plexus or to other targets, where it's going to do maximum damage. Well, what he did was, rather than hit the German units, which he knew were stronger and better trained, he hit the weak point, their allies, the Romanians, the Hungarians, and the Italians. And that's how he broke through the line, and then was able to roll up the rest of the line. See, the idea of having a focal point, in this case, strength against weakness. But that's not the first time he had used it. In 1939, the Japanese and Russians had a small battle on the Mongolian-Manchurian border at a place called Nomonhan. And to Zhukov's left, on the opposing side, there was a hill that was the main Japanese position. And his focal point of his attack, the place he wanted to plan his strategy for, was that hill. We can learn another lesson here is when he went to attack, he sent a large force against the hill to give the Japanese the impression that was the main assault. The other little units, he sent smaller units at just to keep them busy so they couldn't go and reinforce the hill. And then what he did was he sent fast tanks around the Japanese to hit the hill from the back. Funny thing is that his main assault, which was supposed to be just to keep him busy, actually ended up breaking the hill. But once that hill was broken, the Japanese fell apart. And so for every 4 Japanese who walked into the Battle of Nomonhan, only 1 walked out. 76% casualties for the Japanese. That was devastating. But again, 3 military examples of a schwerepunkt, or of a heavy point. There's also civilian examples. You can use this idea for strategy, for business, for military, for even just planning, to have a certain central point where you're going to focus most of your energy. Some years ago, a man came and asked me about to help him solve his problems. He admitted he had a drinking problem. His wife had thrown him out of the house. He had just gotten fired from his job. He had to make court appearances for some disorderly persons charges, because when he got drunk, he acted like a jackass on a neighborhood level. And he had some medical problems coming up, high blood pressure and things like that. He says, well, how do I take on all these problems? And he was scattered all over. And I told him, focus on the drinking. Because when you stop the drinking, you stop causing problems. And then when you stop causing problems, you can start cleaning up the ones you already have. And that takes a commitment. If you've ever dealt with addicts or alcoholics who are seeking help, they can't just seek, they have excuse me, time for a little water. They can't just go there. They have to be committed to it, to put a commitment to it. And what is commitment? It means all in. No half steps, no half measures, all in. You're fully driven to that point. You put all your emphasis there. There is no holding back. Commitment means that you are fully 100% there. Whether you commit yourself to a strategy, a plan, an ideology, a relationship, you're all there. You're not just involved in it. You're not just on the sidelines. Involved. Yeah. A friend of mine used to tell this one. He said, I had bacon and eggs this morning. Bacon and eggs. The chicken was involved in that breakfast, but that pig, he was committed. So commitment is a very important thing. To commit your forces and your energy, and to commit yourself. I like what some of the recovering people told me. They have a thing. Half measures availed us nothing. And commitment is not a halfway thing. It's in everything. It's in all things. 100% total. And that's one of the things in this day and age I believe a lot of young people are missing. That idea of commitment. There's so many things to distract them that they don't pick on one thing to focus. So that focal point is so essential in so many of the things we do. Now, when you're going to solve a problem or do a strategy or any kind of planning, don't just do it in your head. Your mind is going to be trying to sort all those thoughts. Your mind works best when it has something tangible to deal with. And the way to make things tangible, these problems tangible, these needs tangible, is to get a piece of paper and write them down. Write down the things you're facing. Take a good look at them, because this makes it so much easier. And while you're writing them down, write them down in, say, in the level of severity, the level of importance, the level of difficulty, which is the most, which is the least, which one is most likely to be fueling the other problems or contributing to them. And when you do that, you'll see, when you start to solve these things, where you need to put the greatest emphasis, where you need to put the greatest commitment in order to succeed. The pen and paper is a great thing. I've been teaching the use of it for many years because it works. It works a lot better than just bouncing this stuff around in your head. So write it down. Get an idea. Get a clear picture. What I often suggest, write it down, look at it, sort things, and then put it away for a couple hours. A couple hours, half a day, or come back tomorrow even, and look at it again with fresh eyes. And believe me, this works. This makes it even better. Just writing it down and sorting it, that does great things. But when you take it, put it aside, come back to it later, it's like seeing it all over again, and you may often see new things that can enhance your chances of success. You see new openings, new bits of info you may have forgotten, different relationships in these things that maybe it's helpful to know, so you can string them up, go through them, hit that main problem, and then work out the other ones. So remember, it's the idea of that schwerepunkt, the heavy point, the focal point, and then when it's time to deal with it, commitment. And the Tyr Rune is a rune of that focal point and a rune of commitment. And one last thing about commitment is loyalty. The reason an army works is because all the troops are working with the commander. And loyalty is important. You can't have people going the other way. That's why loyalty is considered one of the greatest virtues of the soldier. Also of friends, to have loyal friends. And loyalty is an aspect of the Tyr Rune. Loyalty, commitment, the idea of a focal point, these all work together. So take time and think about it. And then try and apply these to solving problems or to achieve successes that you want. And you'll see it's a winning strategy. This is Uncle Thor. Have a good one.